a great lineup of speakers today. We are so grateful to Donna Butts, Kathy Herms, Zane Bale, Jan Amos, Carmen Keyport, Cheryl Meld, and Vicki Bradzik. And we're also so grateful to have two ASL interpreters today. Thank you, Janae Farnham and Ryan Theo. And I have to give a shout out to the Northland Diversity and Aging Series lead partners. Thank you to the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging, the College of St. Scholastica's Gerontology program, and the college's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And thank you to the Northland Foundation. Also, to my two team members with Duluth Aging Support for all of the background tech support and coordination to make this event happen. Thank you, Rebecca Alsum and Eric Mystery. So I have a couple of housekeeping items now. All audience members are muted. This is Zoom webinar. This isn't a normal Zoom meeting. So your video capability is off and you are not able to speak, but we encourage your engagement in other ways. Please utilize the chat function. We hope that you'll introduce yourself in the chat feature with your name, organization, affiliation, or indicate that you're a student. Or indicate that you're a student or an interested community member. And then we encourage all questions that you have to be put into the question and answer or Q&A feature. The questions will be answered during the panel discussion towards the end of the event, but please feel free to put questions in throughout the event. For this event, we have two fantastic moderators. They are both Northland Diversity and Aging Series lead team members and are passionate about this work. Georgia Lane is the principal planner and program partnership developer for the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. And Amy Bergstrom is the Chief Diversity Officer for the College of St. Scholastica. So now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Amy Bergstrom.
Thank you so much, Mimi, for that warm welcome, and welcome everyone. Buju Anishinaabe Dug, Ogama Wasigik Indigena Ka, Jagina Shimung, Mishkwaga Miwiza Ga Iganing, Nindun Juba, Migazi and Dundam, Bungi Etagon Ninata, Ojibwemon, the College of St. Scholastica and Don O'Keefe. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amy Bergstrom, and I serve as the Chief Diversity Officer here at the College of St. Scholastica. And it's a privilege for me to share this morning with you the Northland Diversity and Aging Series Land Acknowledgement. The Northland Diversity and Aging Series recognizes the land we currently live and work on, originally was and continues to be the homelands of our Indigenous people. We currently enjoy access to this land because the land was ceded in a nation-to-nation treaty process between the Anishinaabe and the United States government. By recognizing Indigenous homelands, we accept our shared history and make a commitment to shaping our ongoing relationships with justice and reconciliation as our guiding values. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Georgia.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here and see so many of you on. First of all, thank you for joining us. I know people's schedules are busy this time of year, and really appreciate you coming to participate and listen to some wonderful presentations that we have today. I'm really excited about it. We have a great agenda in front of us, hearing from some wonderful people, and hopefully have some time for discussion. So please, as our panelists are talking about their respective areas, keep note of any questions or discussions you might have, and we will have time at the end for that. So with that, I do have the pleasure of introducing Donna Butts. Super excited that Donna could join us today. She is the Executive Director of Generations United, a Washington, D.C. based organization, and Donna is an internationally known speaker author and advocate for intergenerational connections, grandparents raising grandchildren, and policies effective across the lifespan. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the nice introduction and for the opportunity to be with you this morning. I've really been looking forward to this, and I appreciate very much Mimi Stender's invitation and our dear colleagues at the Northland Foundation for inviting me to be with you. But I do have to say that I'm not a stranger to Duluth and the Range. I do live in Washington, D.C., but I happen to marry a ranger. I married somebody who grew up on a farm between Hibbing and Chisholm, and is a proud graduate of Hibbing High School and Hibbing Community College and Bemidji. And we've spent many wonderful times in your area, and really appreciate that, but also appreciate learning so much about what you're all doing to make it a great place to grow up and to grow old. So thank you for everything that you're doing. It is a pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to talk a little bit about Generations United, the organization that I've had the privilege of serving as the executive director of for the last 25 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about why intergenerational programs are so important, what a high quality intergenerational program looks like. And I really hope ultimately to spark some ideas and some interest on your part, whether you're already engaged in an intergenerational program, you're thinking about it, or you're just interested in dipping your toe and learning more about it. I really hope that we're able to spark a little bit of interest. But as I said, I've had some experience with you folks, and that includes being able to, in 2011, award the Northland Foundation with our Innovation Award. And many of you probably know Lynn Haglin, who is here in this picture with me. It was great that she and Zane were with us at the conference so we could honor the work that many of you have been involved with in the Northland. But also in 2017, one of our last best intergenerational communities was awarded to Two Harbors. And so we were really grateful that a whole crew from Two Harbors came to join our conference, which that year took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we have been a little bit familiar with some of the great things that have been going on there and are really grateful for that. So first, Generations United. We were founded really to improve the lives of children, youth, and older adults through intergenerational collaboration, public policies, and programs for the enduring benefit of all. We were founded at a time when people were trying to pit the generations against each other. This is a journal cover from back in 1986. And as you can see, it's an older person, a younger person. Each of them have a gun back to back. Basically, the message was, take 10 paces, turn and shoot. Whoever survives gets the scarce resources that we have to invest in what we consider to be our most valuable and vulnerable generations. So our founders came together and said, no, we can and should support our bookend generations, the younger and older, who hold our civil society together. It's not about pitting have-nots against have-nots. It's about coming up with an agenda where we value people at all ages and stages of life. So that's continued to be our work. And as one of our founders said, we formed Generations United to argue for a caring society. And we still do that work, and we continue that work, and we're honored to do the work. Basically, we put it in three buckets. We promote and elevate and help to qualify high-quality intergenerational programs. We advocate for using space and place to connect generations rather than separate generations. And we support grandparents raising grandchildren, grandfamilies through our policy work, through our technical assistance and other work. So we do that work in many ways, with tools, with a biennial conference, webinars, workshops. But our role really and our goal is to make sure that these programs are deeply rooted in communities like yours, because we believe it grows stronger communities, stronger families, and a stronger country. So why is this so important? It's really important because we have really done a lot to artificially segregate the generations, to separate them by age. When you think about it, we have schools where young people go and they isolate all day. We have senior centers where older adults go and close the door. We have gated communities. We have workplaces for in-between generations. And oftentimes those generations never get a chance to meet each other. So why do we think it's really important that we work to make sure that those artificial separations are broken down? Well, this is a little video to show you. So when you think about it, in this country, we would never waste a human capital, an asset, a capital asset. And when we think about that as being our older and younger people in our communities, how do we make sure that we're engaging and authentically engaging people of all ages? And one of the best ways we think is through intentional intergenerational programming. So what is the definition for an intergenerational program? They're really programs that bring people of different ages together for purposeful, mutually beneficial activities that promote greater understanding and respect between the generations. So I think there's some key words there that we're going to touch on for later on, but it's the purposeful, it's mutually beneficial, it's intentional, and it builds understanding and respect. Now, some people will say, okay, I didn't realize I was doing an intergenerational program, or yes, of course we have intergenerational space, but oftentimes it's because they're confusing intergenerational with multi-generational. So these are a couple of pictures to give you that sort of an idea. A multi-generational center or a multi-generational community, one that's built for all ages, is great. Sometimes people tell me a community for all ages is one where there's curb cuts so that people in wheelchairs and people in strollers can have equal access. But if the people in those strollers and wheelchairs never meet each other, is it really a best community for all ages or an intergenerational community? It may be a multi-generational center, a multi-generational town, but the intergenerational aspect is when we intentionally make sure that we're giving opportunities for people to mix, to connect with each other, and to engage with each other. Of course, there's different levels of engagement, and that's something that's really important to remember too. There's this whole continuum that our colleague, Dr. Matt Kaplan at Penn State University developed that ranges from just learning about other generations to meeting them, to occasional activities, to ongoing programs, to intentionally make sure that your community is welcoming and engaging for people of all ages. But really, intergenerational programs at their heart tackle some very serious issues in our communities and our country. They make sure that people of all ages and abilities are viewed as assets, and it's changing the conversation of an aging population from a burden to a benefit. And I have to stop for a second because this photo may look a little bit odd to you. And a lot of the photos that I'm using today are ones from our intergenerational photography contest. But this is one I took in Japan when I was on a visit, visiting a couple of intergenerational shared sites. And this is one where they were doing intergenerational Olympics. And one of the activities had to do with how many peanuts can you attach to the wrinkles of an older person's face. Now, what that does is change the conversation from wrinkles to, I want to find somebody who has the most wrinkles because we're going to win together. And so, as you can tell, they're both intent on the activity that they're engaged in. Now, I have not seen this done in the US, but again, I think it's that whole changing the conversation from asset to asset. And then this is a picture that was taken one Halloween at an intergenerational shared site. It was a site where they had a childcare center in a continuing care retirement community for older adults. And so when it came time to be Halloween, and this boy went home and his parents said, "What do you want to be for Halloween?" The first thing out of his mouth was, "I want to be a grand friend. I want to look like my friends." And so they helped him dress up in his Halloween costume, and he was the hit that day at the center. But again, the message is they really combat ageism, that it's a value. It's okay that people of all ages can be my best friend if I'm around them, if I'm exposed to them. And they really do help to combat ageism, whether it's ageism against young people or ageism that involves older adults. Because people, when they see each other and they see each other's faces and they acknowledge each other, can't keep those stereotypes alive. So who benefits from intergenerational programs? Really, we would say everyone does. And we have a fact sheet on our website and a making the case for intergenerational programs that I'd encourage you to check out. But really, from young to middle-aged to older, and then community-wide, there are benefits. For younger people, as I mentioned, a young person who's been in an intergenerational program doesn't view a wheelchair, doesn't view a walker, doesn't view an older adult as something to be scared of. They see their friend, they feel comfortable. We hear time and again from shared site directors who tell us that when their kids graduate into regular school, they'll get a call from the principal saying, you know, your child is the most empathetic, the most understanding, the most patient, and the most accepting of people who don't look like them, who may have a disability or who just simply don't look like them, because that's how they've been exposed. For families, it oftentimes is helpful to know that your aging parents and your children have those other relationships and those supportive relationships and investments that make a difference. And for older adults, it provides that purpose. It provides a reason to get out of bed. We find that older adults who are involved in intergenerational programs score better on cognitive tests. They report being more optimistic. They're more active. They rely on canes use less. There was a recent study in LA of older adults starting into an intergenerational program and then finishing that intergenerational program. And one of the measures was that they measured how fast they walked, and they'd actually increased their walking speed by the time they finished the program. So the health benefits are just really phenomenal. And when you think about communities where they don't have to try to build and support a multi-generational center, a teen center, a senior center, they can support an intergenerational center that engages and is used by all generations for a longer period of time, for a more fulfilling period of time. It really helps some of those scarce dollars go further. So there's a number of reasons why everyone benefits from intergenerational programs. But when you ask intergenerational program practitioners what they think the value is and why they do it, they really are focused on decreasing social isolation and increasing social connectedness. They see the value. They see the increase in self-esteem among the people that they work with. They think that they know that there's a greater understanding of other ages, more trust across other ages, more ability to be involved with other generations. So there are several key elements to intergenerational programs. They're inclusive. They involve people of different backgrounds. They're relational. They build relationships between people. It's not just superficial. They're respectful. As I said, they're reciprocal. Sometimes people think, oh, isn't it wonderful that older adults are willing to give to children, or that look at what the joy that child brings to an older adult. But they're both receiving and giving. They're really based on reciprocity. They're respectful of each other. They're responsive to each generation, and they're empowering. I think oftentimes one of my favorite examples is actually a program that was started many years ago. It was a surfing competition for older surfers that was a fundraiser to support older surfers in California. It was called the Kapuna Kahuna Surf Competition. And they had all the different age categories. They did that for many years. And then after attending one of our events, the organizers thought, well, what if? And so they added another category, and that was the intergenerational category. So it wasn't just one generation. You had to have 3 generations of surfers. And that in the last 10 or 15 years has grown to be the most popular category. And that's because it benefits and uses the skills of each generation. So a younger person may be able to get out to a great wave first, but an older person is going to know what's going to be the great wave they should go for. And so they really engage with each other. So again, it includes all of those aspects, valuing people of every age, celebrating together, having a purpose to get together. So we consider there to be, and many people do, 4 basic types of intergenerational programming. And you'll see that they're outlined by direction of service. And the reason that we do that is because it's the easiest to kind of get your mind wrapped around them. But it doesn't mean, again, that one generation is benefiting more than the other, because they are, in fact, each benefiting. So there's programs where younger people are serving older people are serving younger people, younger and older people are serving together, and then intergenerational spaces and places, as I mentioned. So what do they look like on the ground? Well, one that you're probably familiar with is younger serving older, in that younger people may be teaching how to access technology, how to use a phone, how to use a computer, that sort of thing. But young people are also capturing stories. And sometimes that's so important because, for example, at a shipbuilding area in the UK, they started recording the stories of the old shipbuilders as that business was disappearing. And people realized that they were preserving history. They were preserving the culture. And for the older adults, they said, I'd never thought anybody cared about my story. And we see that with Holocaust survivors and others, where we're preserving the stories. They're friendly visit programs. Oftentimes, older adults may be shut in, and to have a younger person or a team of younger people visit can be really terrific. but there's also older serving younger. And this is a picture from an exercise class. It's being led by an 82-year-old who's sharing the value of physical fitness and why it's important that people stay active at all ages. And I think she may be doing better than the two teenagers are. This is a program from a small community in Kansas. And I love this one because this is called School Greeters. And to me, it's a great example of how a simple intervention can make such a difference. In that program, older adults go to the schools. I think there's 2 in the town. They go to the schools every Monday morning and they greet every child that walks in. They say, "Hi, how are you? Great to see you. Welcome. So glad you're here." And they realize that oftentimes that's the first nice thing, kind thing, supportive thing that child's heard that day. So it starts the day and the week off great. And then when all the children are in, the older adults go to the cafeteria, they have coffee together, and then they go about their days. So it's a simple intervention that really makes a difference. And I'm not sure why on this particular day the greeter was dressed up as a rabbit, but I'm sure there's a reason why it made sense. There also, when it comes to younger and older serving together, this is an example where high school students and older adults worked with elementary or grade school children to teach them math. And then there's intergenerational orchestras and theater groups. This is a picture from the New Jersey Intergenerational Orchestra. The youngest member was 6, the oldest was 92. You know, they may not have always hit the right notes, but they had a great time trying. And we're seeing a lot more in the arts and areas like that, where older and younger are coming together, which is terrific. And then this is a project. This is a young man and his mentor, and this is in Washington, D.C. The older gentleman made it his life's work to capture the stories from a graveyard here in Washington, D.C. that was the first graveyard for freed enslaved people in the D.C. area. So he captured their stories. And as he got older, he was worried that all of that work would be lost. And enter Kamari, who worked with him side by side and then took over that project. So together, they passed on that value of saving those stories. And then the last is intergenerational shared sites. And I love this. This is a picture from a shared site and how we can actually create things that are bigger and stronger together. But shared sites, the most common model would be a child care center in a nursing home, a continuing care retirement community, maybe a senior center. But there are also senior centers located in high schools. There's after school programs in senior centers. There are really various ways that these can take place. And they're not always inside. They're also community gardens where older and younger are gardening together. And then, of course, we all know everyone likes to have fun. So there are also playgrounds that are made intentionally for people of all ages and so that they can meet each other. And then, as I mentioned, there are communities that are building, that are intentionally not saying, I'm going to build 2 separate facilities, but they're pooling their resources and they're combining. So this is Swampscott, Massachusetts, where they built the high school and senior center together. And trust me, there were efforts to pit the senior center against the school. And they said, no, we can combine those resources and that will make it stronger. So we know that mixing it up is the new cool, and there's a reason for it. It's because it makes sense, saves dollars while it makes sense, but because there's so much that can be shared across generations. So I wanted to encourage everybody to make sure that you take a bite, that you consider how might the work that you're already engaged in benefit by applying an intergenerational lens. And it doesn't have to be huge. It's best to start small, but how could it benefit by either younger people or older people engaging? And again, be sure that it's something that starts small, because some of the tips that we've learned from around the country is do take advantage of the fact that this isn't a new area of work. One of the first intergenerational programs was back in 1965 as part of the War on Poverty, when foster grandparents was first discovered or first founded. And really, they have grown and grown since that time. So learn from what's come before. And those resources are readily available on our website and elsewhere. be sure to start small, because sometimes people get overwhelmed they hear about a great program model and they think, oh, I just can't possibly do that, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the energy to do that. So start small. It's like Arthur Ashe always said, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So start small. Look locally. Think about the assets that there are in your community, in your program, in your building, but think locally. Find the intergenerational intersection, as well as that intergenerational lens of the work that you do. Be creative and persistent. You'd be amazed at one person with one idea has been able to do, and how many lives that can touch. And then most of all, of course, be sure to have fun, because I've had people before tell me, well, young people, you can't just talk at them because they need to move and they want to have fun. And I said, well, I don't think that's just young people. I think we all want to move and we all want to have fun. We all want to enjoy, and we all want to know that our lives make a difference. There are a number of resources that I recommend. Everything on our website is available to you, whether it's fact sheets, whether it's how to do programming during a pandemic when we all had to separate, whether it's how do you begin to create a shared site. And then one of my favorites on this slide is I need you, you need me, which really is the basis for why we need to engage in intergenerational programs and how to encourage that. And then we also have specific toolkits. Connecting Generations in Senior Housing is a great way to begin, as well as our Sharing Our Space toolkit that we were fortunate that the Eisner Foundation supported. So I would just encourage you to look at those resources. And then be sure to connect. If you're not getting our Generations This Week newsletter, I'd encourage you to sign up. It's free. Participate in social media. Think about the Global Intergenerational Conference, which is coming up in late July 2023 in Washington, D.C. We'd love to see you there. Because we have to remember that when we pull together, we can do so much more. So this is a video I wanted to share with you about a great program example that I hope will inspire you.
Not all of our students have the chance to travel abroad and to interact with native speakers of English. What our students really want is to speak English fluently. And we're always asking ourselves, how can we make it more real, more human? We created a tool that connects our students with seniors in the USA living in retirement homes.
Hello, hello.
Melissa.
Hi, Deke. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
How are you today? I'm good. How are you?
It's the first time that I'm talking with someone from another country.
I'm very excited to be doing this.
I look like I'm only 25, but I'm 88.
Do you have sisters and brothers?
No, I'm one child.
Only one. Oh, you poor fella.
I live with my old brother. He has 23 years.
Do you know, instead of saying he has 23 years, you could say he is 23 years old.
I tried to go to Lollapalooza that we have next week, I think, in Brazil, but my mom didn't let me.
You got a good mom.
Good morning, dear Julia. Good morning to you.
This is your dad? That's me and my wife when we were young.
Oh, you were good looking when you were young. And you're still good looking.
My first destiny is United States, of course, because I wanted to put better my English.
Well, you do very well, I must say.
Are you planning someday to go to Brazil?
Oh, I would like to.
You can stay in my house if you want.
if you could just dream and have whatever you want, what do you think you would like to be doing?
I see myself in a big family, with a beautiful wife. And I want to thank you for this change of experience. You are incredible.
Obrigado.
You are my new granddaughter.
And I love you.
I love you too.
And if you were here, I would give you a big hug.
Oh yeah, that's a. Oh.
Bye. Bye.
So I just encourage you to do as Albert Einstein cautioned us. Most people see what is and never see what can be. Be someone who sees what can be. Thank you for letting me join you today.
Oh my goodness, Donna, thank you so much for that heartfelt presentation. And just, I see somebody in the chat got goosebumps. I got goosebumps, just thinking about my own aging parents and, how that looks as well. And so that was just really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker now as we transition here. And again, thank you, Donna, but I want to welcome Kathy Hermes with us today. Kathy works for Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota in youth programming. They are the coordinator of Together for Youth, a social support group for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, two-spirit, and allied youths. They also coordinate the Free Teen Health Center, where they perform HIV testing and work to reduce COVID vaccination hesitance among teens and young adults. Thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you now.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for inviting me today to join you all. And thank you, Donna, for that fantastic foundational and very heartwarming introductory information you shared with us. I just want to make sure that my slides are up. Could someone? Okay, great, thank you. So my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Another way to communicate that is to say that my pronouns are she, they. I'm generally your average non-binary elder who lives in the Chester Creek watershed of the East Hillside neighborhood of Duluth. This is where I work for Lutheran Social Service. It's a relatively new building called the Center for Changing Lives building. And as Amy indicated, I coordinate a program called Together for Youth, which is a social support group for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, allied, two-spirit, demi-boys, demi-girls, pan-romantics, and all kinds of other normally and beautifully identified 14 to 20-year-olds. And I'm also attached to our Free Teen Health Center, where we do the HIV and syphilis prevention work, and presently also doing COVID vaccination hesitance work amongst teens and young adults, where we use our little youth-created mascot called Vaxicorn. So a little bit about words before I proceed. I'm going to use the words youth, melders, and elders several times in the minutes that I have with you. And I have arbitrarily created the age boundaries for those. So just to give you a sense of who I'm referring to when I use those words. Youth, for today's purposes, will represent teens through 25-year-olds. Elders will be the 60+ folks. And then the melders in the middle are individuals who are 26 through 59. Also, I'm going to be using a lot of words that may or may not be familiar to you. I'll be saying them often and perhaps rapidly, sometimes just using letters. And what I'll ask of you is that you just kind of roll with my use of those words. And as a backdrop, remember that we're all normal, beautiful people. And as the kids say, we just need to get to know each other and be decent to each other. There's high importance in those words that we use for our identities and orientations and expressions, but they're fluid, just like us. That vocabulary that describes our community is fluid. There are 2 glossaries included in the resources. So if you're hanging on to some of those words and you want bigger description of it in your mind, check those glossaries out. And just know that that glossaries will differ from one to another as well. So in our time together, I want to be able to make 2 main impressions, and if time allows, a third. Number one, I want to impress upon you that in spite of it being 2022, it's really hard to be an LGBTQIA2S+ person, regardless of what age you are. Second, that intergenerational regard and relationship within our LGBTQ+ communities can help soften the hardness that we're experiencing out there in the world. And then if time allows, third, that allies, if they choose to, can significantly help lighten the load that LGBTQ+ individuals of all ages have to navigate through. So to start out by sharing that the world is still a hard place to be, to express yourself authentically for the LGBTQ+ population. There's a lot of erasure underway. Some of that is legislative. In the middle of the summer, I heard that there were 300+ anti-LGBTQ bills having been introduced in most states in the United States. Knowing that your identity is being deliberated upon about that's hard. It's hard to carry that intellectual load. Youth, maybe thankfully in this case, aren't that aware of what's going on. Some are, but melders and elders certainly know that this is underway, that we are being spoken about, and in some instances made invisible in terms of policy setting. If you're curious about what's going on state to state, you can check the Freedom Legislative Tracker, and I'll quickly share some pieces of legislation that were active in Minnesota last spring. Most of these are focused on transgender athletes, mostly transgender girl athletes. So what do we do as individuals and as a community when erasure is actively underway, when we're being denied basic services and rights? Well, we do something called code switching. That's not unique to the LGBTQ community. Marginalized people resort to this often. You speak differently, you dress differently, you may walk differently, you may choose to not be in certain spaces. Code switching is necessary to navigate the hardness that exists out there across all ages for LGBTQ+ people. And I'm going to give you an example of how I code switch as a presenter. So if I feel like I can safely speak plainly and using the words that most easily roll off my tongue as a presenter, I would use a title like this, where the word queer is included. But I know that's a trigger word within our own community and in the greater community. So sometimes I don't use that word, but I'll use the letter. So here's an example of where that letter is included with a bunch of other letters, and I'll parse out these letters a little bit more in a few more slides. And sometimes I can't even use the word Q. I deliberated last spring in doing a presentation at an area school, and we landed on this, avoiding use of the word queer or the letter Q. And then back to the main title that I had used for this presentation. Here's an indication where I have to code switch within my own community when I'm in the presence of elders versus in the presence of melders versus in the presence of youth. And I'll just, no, we're not going to take the time to define all these letters attached to particular words, but just give you a little bit of the lay of the land of how things have switched over time. So for the elders, I'm using LGBT here. For older elders, maybe GLBT would be better yet. And for the melders, I've got LGBTQIA2S+. We've added some letters to that LGBT. And then look what the youth did for us. The NQT2S LGBIA+, that happens to be the title name for the commission, relatively newly formed commission here in Duluth. We've added a few letters and we've resequenced those letters. The future looks non-binary and queer to me. Taking a look at kind of the hardness of the grounds for the LGBTQIA2S+ community nationally, this is a focus on what's going on for youth, but I think this is a good temperature indicator of how it may be for elders and elders in these states too. The red states are states where the no promo homo or the don't say gay or the parental rights laws have been active. And this map needs to be updated because Florida's flipped red. I believe Georgia too, maybe another few states as well. So it's hard being a youth in those states in terms of what can be said or presented at your school that may totally erase your existence. The gray states are non-enumeration states where they avoid naming particular or actually any category for anti-bullying protections. So in this viewpoint, the yellow states would potentially be safer states for youth in particular, as well as melders and elders too. And then let's look at things statewide for Minnesota. What's it like for the LGBTQ+ population in Minnesota? This is a map from the 2012 vote on same-sex marriage. The red counties voted in favor of same-sex marriage. The green counties did not. There's a lot of green area there, microaggression land, if you will, and the red counties where potentially it could be safer to be LGBTQ+ identified. But I would suggest to you that if we only included Duluth's results, or if we took off Duluth's results for St. Louis County, that county would shift to green. And then taking a look at another hardness, another challenge for the LGBTQ+ population is just financial stability. This particular graph represents elders' experiences in terms of financial stability. And it's a graph that's showing levels below 200% of the federal poverty line. And there's a lot of LGBTQ elders indicated below that line. The three high ones on the far right, older bisexual men, older bisexual women, and transgender older adults at either 47% or 48% being under that 200% of the poverty level. That's a hard part of what we have to navigate. And so as a response, we've developed mutual aid within our own community and coming from outside of our community as well. Isolation issues. I'm going to read the middle section there. LGBT older adults are twice as likely to live alone as non-LGBT adults and often face social isolation and vulnerability. You know what? Same stuff's going on, especially for rural LGBTQ youths. And COVID has deepened the mental health concerns associated with this isolation and vulnerability. Here's a good thing that we've got going for elders is that we do have some LGBT specific housing that's popping up across the United States, Minnesota having Spirit on Lake, but we need so much more. There's so much more need. And I'll also say we need LGBTQ specific housing for youths because we haven't enculturated well enough in our general housing supports for youths, safety zones or safety bubbles large enough to allow them to feel comfortable. And then my last slide for impressing upon you the difficulties of being LGBTQ. This rests on high school experiences of 9th grade lesbians. I'll interpret this quickly. You don't want to be the leader on this bar graph. And the category second from the right, the lesbian 9th graders lead in all 4 negative mental health indicators, which involve thoughts about suicide, self-harming, attempts at suicide, and long-term mental health issues. That's a very telling slide. And I would suggest, even though this is from 2013, those trend lines remain the same for our youth and would be very similar for our elders in the LGBTQ+ community. So here's a little relief for us coming from Ivan Coyote, they, them pronouns, who in a recent book shared this quote. And I really want to kind of center by my remaining minutes on Ivan's words here. And I'm going to insert some words because of the intergenerational applicability of this. I don't believe the answer to excuse me, I don't believe that the answer to making the world safe for our youth and our elders is teaching them that they need to toughen up to face down the world. They should not have to. A kid nor an elder shouldn't have to learn through trauma and swallow a diet of other people's ignorance simply to become themselves. We need to be changing this world faster. We need to soften this world up, not make our kids and elders harder. Hear, hear to those words. So how do we take Ivan's advice and soften up the world? Here's some advice from youth. Be open and welcoming. Applies to melders and elders too. That's a low bar. How do you be open and welcoming to people? How do you let them know that you see them? You make sure that they're feeling significant, that they have a sense of belonging in your spaces, and that they're safe. And in terms of affording a sense of significance to youth in particular, call them by their true names. Don't use their birth names if they don't want to hear their birth names. Use the pronouns that they want to hear from you. For our elders, make sure that elders are receiving complete, competent, and caring services. The Older Americans Act just recently acknowledged LGBT needs in their proclamations. So it's so important to afford overall significance for our elders. The issue of belonging. Our LGBTQ plus youth should feel like they belong in every space in their schools, in the hallways, in the band rooms, in the locker rooms, crossing the parking lot, everywhere. Our LGBTQ elders should deserve to feel safe in all the spaces they occupy, at senior nutrition sites, at the bingo hall, in their faith communities, in assisted living systems, in doctors' offices. And all of us in the LGBTQ plus community, we should feel like we belong in our families of origin, our biological families, and those chosen families that we create around us. The issue of safety being important intergenerationally, and a really, really important spot to do hard work is to prioritize the safety of youth and the safety of melders and elders over discomfort of other adults. If we could flip that, we would have a lot of important progress. So it's incumbent upon us to creep outside of our comfort zones as often as we can, hold ourselves there and grow, see the world differently and react differently, and change the hardness around us. The importance of honoring personal truths from the youth, use our correct pronouns as names as already indicated. And I'm going to do a quick public service announcement on that because it's so important to the young people. Using correct pronouns is a matter of respect, visibility, and safety. When you mess up, and you will, you acknowledge, oops, apologize, I'm sorry, carry on, or correct yourself quickly from there. And if you're struggling with this practice, here's my practice tactic. I use my cats. Snutters is the they, them cat. White Stripes is the he, him cat. And our wild card pronoun cat is the neighbor cat, Donald Ferguson. You can do it. You have a big brain with lots of capacity. And I'll add, youth need to get their patience pants on and let adults mess up for a while. Another part of honoring personal truths, especially for elders, is to recognize committed relationships of the past and present, making sure that they receive the emotional and practical benefits associated with those. Another way to help soften the hardness in the world is to address bullying across all ages. Don't be a bystander, whether it's in a school or a doctor's office or an assisted living facility. And then finally, creating facilities that help increase safety, whether it's bathrooms, locker rooms, remodeling, building new, or building whole assisted living facilities. This is the Montrose Center in Texas. And then centering back with Ivan here, I'm going to talk specifically about intergenerational support in the LGBTQ plus community in my last couple of minutes here. So we do have a little credit LSS for doing intergenerational work. We've got some youth who helped out an elder in Superior with yard work over a summer. We have youth helping elders with the internet and the Facebook. And we had a big summer gathering a handful of years ago where we brought youth melders and elders together for some socializing and some food. Elders first, big gay desserts, some history sharing, giant LGBT Trivial Pursuit games, some some intergenerational dancing, and the youth trying to convince the elders that they understood disco. So here we are, our normal, beautiful selves with lots of gifts to share. We have those gifts for the greater community, but we need to share those gifts within our community. A lot of times youth can't see elders. They're not quite sure what happens to older LGBTQ elders, like we just dissipate or something at some point. And many times elders are not really familiar with what's important to youth. And we can be really helpful. As Donna indicated earlier, there's so much power in us getting together. And so for my remaining seconds here, I'm gonna just click through wordlessly some elders, some melders, and some youth representing their normalcy, their beauty, and the gifts that they have to offer us. So just take this in. So first of all, our elders, our ancestors, our transcestors, and our contemporaries. And for our melders, from our melders. And for our youth, and from our youth, who we need to be grateful for their work at being gender pioneers. And I'll just close with saying, we need to get together and talk about our gifts, our wisdom, and the power that we can gain from working together within the LGBTQIA2S+ community. Thank you for this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy, so much for that information. Wonderful presentation. I love the pictures. I will look forward to getting these slides so I can take some time to look at them a little bit further. Really appreciate the work that you have going on and that you're doing for advocacy in our community. So with that, we are going to transition to our colleagues with the Northland Foundation. It is my pleasure to introduce Zane Bale and Jan Amos. As the Chief Operating Officer of the Northland Foundation, Zane Bale provides strategic leadership for a portfolio of programs and initiatives. She joined the Northland Foundation in 1997 and led the regional research study that led to the development of the Age to Age program in 2008. Jan has more than 25 years of extensive background in intergenerational youth development and out-of-school time programming. Jan helped launch the Age to Age program when it started in 2008, along with the expansion efforts, including intergenerational intern fellows and reading programs. So with that, welcome Zane and Jan.
Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute myself. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad to be here. Just want to do a shout out to Donna Butts and Kathy from LSS for their great presentations, and just so glad to be a part of it. And I'm got my slides up, and so we're ready to go. So glad to be here. Oops, sorry. Gosh. So Northland Foundation, we're a regional foundation that serves the 7 counties and 5 tribal nations that share the same geography, been around since 1986, and we support our mission through grant making, business services, our Kids Plus family of programs, and our convening, training, and special initiatives. And I'm so excited to be here to talk about Age to Age, our intergenerational community building strategy. We created Age to Age in 2008 following a year-long study that we did in northeastern Minnesota, where we went out and talked to older adults across the region, talked to aging service providers. And at that point, it was clear that we needed to put together our children and youth initiative and our older adult focus into an intergenerational initiative, because older adults really were concerned about the younger generation and keeping their communities as thriving places for all people to live. And so Age to Age is really about intentionally, I love when Donna talked about that this morning, intentionally bringing older adults, 55 plus, and youth together, but also those generations in between. And I love the term that Kathy used, the melders. We might have to pick that one up. And so Age to Age is really focused on helping all generations achieve their full potential, but really helping tapping the talents and wisdom of older adults to help children and youth thrive. So over the years, since 2008, we've been very fortunate to help launch 18 Age to Age communities across the region. And they didn't all happen at once, started with 10, added a few more to 18. And I just want to pause for a minute and recognize my colleague, Lynn Hagelin, or our colleague, Lynn Hagelin, who retired in 2021. And it was so nice, Donna, to see that picture of Lynn, because she was really helped get this initiative started and really help it become a nationally recognized program. And also Taylor Holm, who's on our team currently, and she was in the 2017 Two Harbors picture, receiving the Generations Best Community Award at the Generations United Conference in Milwaukee. So we're pleased to have Taylor on our team. And so here's our programs. I'm really pleased to say that after more than a decade, 16 of these communities are still vibrant and doing great things. So what's our model? We really, our belief, our grounding belief is that communities know best. So we start with a local coordinator, and you get to hear from 3 coordinators today. And we start there, we build an action team, an intergenerational action team. We go through our community organizing model that was started back in the early 1990s and tried and tested through our Kids Plus organizing process. And then we really support our communities through learning communities, trainings, and bringing people together. And we had to throw on our Generations United program of distinction that we so proudly received in 2012 and maintained over all the years. So Jan, take it away.
Sure. So we just wanted to give you some ideas of the grassroots ideas and projects that have come out of Age to Age. Now, each of our communities is different, so there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So these are just some general ideas. There was a lot of community service and beautification in all of our 18 sites. It seems to be one of the easiest things people can do that can just start off. They don't need a lot of money or time, but they can dive right in. As you know, a lot of youth enrichment and education around tutoring, working with kids in schools, reading pals, and then health and wellness. I mean, you probably see advertisements all over if you're in our region about 5Ks and walking trails and snowshoeing, any outdoor thing you can do to encourage health and wellness, as well as, senior health fairs. Some of our communities have hosted. Technology learning has been very popular, so they call them tech and coffees. They happen in many of our sites where elders and youth come together. The youth show elders how to use their iPads or their phones, establish emails. Some are doing the ancestry.com with their elders and learning more about their families. And then I also mentioned community gatherings happen on a regular basis out at our sites. But then with our tribal nations, a lot of cultural tradition and activities are happening, like sugar bushing, wild ricing, maple syruping, beading, regalia making. So it's just a wide assortment of projects and programs. It's very different in each community. So you can go to the next one. COVID hit our Age to Age sites, but the neat part about being a community organization that they really rally. So I just want to show some pictures because I don't want to cut into our time with our coordinators because they're the most important part of our work. But a lot of outdoor projects and programs happened during COVID. where we had to socially distance. So a lot of raised garden beds, a lot of farmers markets, a lot of walking trails were created where snowshoes and ice skates at the ribbon in Cloquet happened. Zane, you can go to the next one. They also figured out ways that they connect at a distance. So reading pals happened outside when the weather was nice, where elders actually worked with students in the schools and read to them. And we know that it wasn't just about reading, it was about that social emotional learning and developing relationships. Youth went to senior living facilities and did bingo. They also did art projects where they would share half a canvas. Youth would take half, the elder would take half, and then they would display those in communities. And recreation and sports is very popular. So golf leagues, pickleball is a huge thing right now. Walking trails where they could read storybooks. And Fond du Lac actually had mountain bikes and trail bikes that people could check out and go on trail rides together. So lots of different ideas during COVID happened. And probably, Zane, you go to the next one. One of the fun ones was the pen pal projects that schools embraced and took their students to writing letters to elders and elders returning the letters back to them. And so I just showed at one of our communities, they painted rocks and put them all over in the communities so people could find them. And we can share these slides with you, but a lot of make and take project ideas for families and for elders living in care. And I think we have one more slide about oh no, I'm going to turn over to you to talk about our expansion projects.
Great. I'm just going to get good at this and I'll be all done. Anyway, well, so Age to Age has really grown and evolved over the years. And like I shared earlier, we started in 2007 with a study. We launched our Age to Age communities over time, but we're very excited about our Reading Pals program, which was really started in Moose Lake, and you're going to hear from Vicki Radzak about that. But Age to Age has expanded to 8 different communities across the region, and that's really intentionally creating those opportunities for older adults to read with children and youth, particularly the early child through grade 3 age, and really focus on social emotional development. Our summer college intern program, and now the last 3 years we've been doing our Age to Age fellows. So our college intern program started in 2012, where we had traditional and untraditional college students working in the intergenerational community building in the summer. And then 3 years ago, we started bringing an older adult, 50 plus, and a college student or a high school student together during the summer and fall to work on intergenerational projects. And we're super excited about our new AmeriCorps Seniors RSVP program that we are launching at the end of September. We received a demonstration grant with American Recovery Funding to pilot this program in 12 of our Age to Age sites. So really formalizing the older adult volunteerism, and it's all about helping children and youth with the COVID recovery with learning loss and social emotional development. So Jan, I'm going to turn it back to you to introduce our panel.
Yes, we're so excited to have 3 of our coordinators with us today. The first person I'm going to hand it over to is Carmen Keyport from Grand Portage. So welcome, Carmen.
Good afternoon. I am Carmen Keyport, Executive Director of Oshkosh-Ogama Community School. We are located on the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. The village itself is 7 miles from the Canadian border along the north shore of Lake Superior. It is a fairly remote area, yet beautiful in our beautiful area of our state. Our school is a multi-grade class school. This year we have kindergarten and first grade together and second and third grade together. Part of our school's mission is to preserve the Anishinaabe language and culture, and we promote hands-on learning. And who better to learn the culture from is the community's elders through activities together. Elders come and help us teach beading sessions, We have some that will come and do some sweetgrass sessions. Actually, we go to them and pick sweetgrass. You can see the picture on the screen of us picking sweetgrass, and then we braid it, and they've taught us the significance of how many strands should be in the braid. And then we are able to use that for smudging. I really give a lot of credit to one of the gals that beads with us. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and so her hands are a bit cripply and pain, and she's in pain a lot of times, but she still is very dedicated to come and showing the students how to bead the bracelets and stuff. So it's just amazing how they just are so dedicated to our students. We have quite a few people that come every year and will gather wild rice and show our students how to gather the rice traditionally, and we'll go go to the sugar bush camp in the spring, and they're also dedicated people year after year will do that for us. These are just some of the activities that the students are learning how to do, but they're not just learning those activities. At the same time, they are meeting the elders of the community. They're making some personal connections with these people. They maybe wouldn't meet the people otherwise. Even though we're a small community and you would think, oh, you know everyone in your community, people often keep to themselves. So this is a way that we bring the elders and the young people together, and they form a bond. And I've seen people that years later, a student will say to an elder, remember when you came and taught us beading, or remember when you came and had tea with us at Sugar Bush Camp? And then they'll talk about that event. So it really is impactful to the student when the elders will come and join in the activities with them. We something we have done for many years through our Age to Age program is reading with the elders. This is an activity that we do twice a week. Generally it's 1 or 2 students pair up with an elder, and they read a book or 2, and the elders will help out if they need to. And after reading, then they'll just take a few minutes to visit with each other. Sometimes the elder might be a grandparent, might not be a grandparent, might be someone they've never met before, but they always form a nice bond and enjoy each other's company. Another interesting session we've done is tea with elders. The elders talk about their childhood and what life was like for them growing up without running water or going to school in a one-room schoolhouse. And it's really fun to see how eye-opening it is for today's youth to hear about the elders' life and how they didn't have electricity or they didn't have the gaming systems. And it creates some great conversations and gives everyone a whole different outlook on life and each other. But in reality, it does not really matter what we do with each other. What matters is that we're spending time together, we're being friends and appreciating each other. This connection is important for the mental health of the elders and the youth, and it brings purpose to the lives for some of these people. It might be the highlight of someone's day or week, and we're just happy to be a part of that. Miigwech for having me here today.
Hello.
Hi,
Good
Cheryl.
afternoon, everyone. This is Cheryl Meld, and I'm working in the McGregor community in Minnesota. In 2008, when our community engaged in Age to Age, we were the oldest county in Minnesota, which meant the oldest percentage of people over 65. And we knew that there was a place for us to work on intergenerational programming because of that. And what we wanted to do was look at our community and see where we could really build on existing efforts rather than create something new. One of the efforts that we knew about was the Angels program, which served seniors in our community with some home care services, transportation, and their volunteer corps was older adults as well. And we knew that there were some things that maybe those older adults couldn't provide for the people in need in their homes. And we looked at our own youth programs, and we knew that we were developing workforce skills among kids. So what we did was take our workforce program and name it Pay It Forward. And we started serving the older adults in the community with chore services and relationship building in a way that would help the older adults, but would also help our youth learn work skills as they did service for these people. And we go out and provide raking and lawn care, weeding, lots of different things, a lot of shoveling because we have a lot of winter here. And then we did community projects as well. And those things were overseen by older adults in the community. In one of the pictures, you see some kids that are scraping and painting a bench, and the mayor of one of the small towns in our community is helping teach them the skills. Our Pay It Forward program allowed us to meet and really get to know some of the seniors in our community. And those older adults were able to share things about their lives and learn about the young people and what we were trying to accomplish. One of the things that we did while we were building those relationships is started to identify people who were really isolated in their homes. And we wondered what we could do through our youth program to help the older adults. One of the first things that happened, and it was very touching, was asking one of the couples where we were serving, where the woman had had a stroke and was quite limited in her mobility, and the husband was caring for her at home. We asked, "Is there anything else you need?" And the husband asked, could somebody paint my wife's nails? Because he was unable to do that. And it really meant a lot to her to look her best. And that was one of the things that helped her look her best. And one of the girls on our service crew did that for them. And it was really a touching moment, but also a real bonding experience in building a relationship. Another one of the things that grew out of Pay It Forward was our planter program. We provided planters and helped older adults fill those planters with flowers. And then we did visits focused around those planters, where we'd come out and feed the plants and talk about the plants and hear about gardening experiences that those people had had. And it was another way to connect. Another thing that we did was initiate Fit Friends. And that was providing resistance bands for people to exercise at home. And we'd connect with them over the phone or in person and just encourage them to be more active. Even if they were sitting in a chair, they could still do resistance exercises, and then talk about that experience with our Pay It Forward kids when they came out. We also found that some of the older adults were hesitant to walk, even though they were able to do walking and get exercise that way. They were afraid to walk by themselves along the rural roadways with no sidewalks and no traffic lanes or walking lanes or trails they could walk on. And we paired them up with adults and youth in our community so that they could have a walking partner. And it was a small thing, but it really made a difference for those people to be able to get out. And we also did oral history interviews and created videos where people could share their story. And the interviews were conducted by young people and by our staff. that sounds like a lot of benefits to the older adults, but one of the greatest benefits of this whole program was that the people that we served, they had the option of giving us donations to keep feeding our program, or they could return service in kind. And some of the greatest experiences, learning experiences and helping experiences and relationship experiences, have been when those people have come in and volunteered in our programs and helped us build what we're doing in our community through their contributions of service. Age to Age has really influenced how we do our event planning. We look at how our events can be intergenerational, and that means looking at the venue to make sure it's accessible, to look at the time of day when we offer things, to look at how we're seating people, to looking at the menu. And we've encouraged people to come and given prizes or recognition for families that bring 3 or more generations to our community events. And that has really gotten us, it's helped us learn about the people in our community. We established the Ultimate Social Club for older adults, and they gather to learn new skills and share that social time. And from that group, we recruit volunteers into our programs. But the Ultimate Social Club then is now making efforts to include even the more isolated people in our community into recreational activities that they aren't able to do because they lack transportation, or some of their mobility is challenged, or they just aren't feeling like they're part of the community. Some of those people in the Ultimate Social Club now are helping build literacy as reading volunteers with our young people, and helping us to connect with other agencies and organizations in the community that they have connections with to help support growth in intergenerational programming. So from building upon the things that were already happening in our community and identifying where some of those needs were, our youth programs have really benefited and grown. And we've got this new volunteer core of people with so much wisdom and so much experience to share with us. So it's been really a win-win for both the youth programs and for the older adults in our community. We've learned about some of our, besides event planning, our field trip planning, in looking at where are places that lots of people like to go, no matter what age they are, and started doing intergenerational field trips. And we learned that not everyone can ride a school bus for an hour and a half. So we've had to look at how we transport people. We've had to look at the meals we eat along the way. So we are constantly learning and constantly growing our program, and really are working to continue this in our community. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Vicki Radzak, and I'm from Moose Lake. We are just a little bit south of Duluth, about 45 minutes on I-35, and we're also in a small town. Oh, sorry, you're going to hear this. You might hear the photocopy machine, and it might go dark because the lights. So it's not your computer, it's me. So I apologize for that. But like I said, we have about 2,800 people in our community, and our school district wide is about 5,000 people. We're surrounded by many lakes, which is nice because we are getting an influx of young retirees moving from Minneapolis up here to their family lake cabin and renovating that, and now living here full time. So we have a large resource bank of volunteers. We have a nice big new hospital in our town, 2 clinics, a state prison, a grocery store, and many small businesses. So that's kind of the feel for our town. Zane touched a little bit on Kids Plus and the Northland Foundation, how they kind of get things started in communities. And that's really, I'm looking at a list here of things I've done. I started this job here about 22 years ago, and 21 of them have been spent with the Northland Foundation. So I feel like they've trained me, they've trained Moose Lake into being an intergenerational community. We started out with that great foundation, that great base of intergenerational planning. That Northland Foundation said, do you want to be a Kids Plus community? Kids Plus community. So intergenerational group decided, what do we need? What does our town need? What's not so great here? What is great? And we came up with a safe place for kids to be after school. And that we're 21 years into our safe place for kids after school, our Kids Plus after school enrichment program. Now, the beauty of that program is we're able to offer this for $20, $25 a week, 3 nights a week for 2nd through 6th graders. The beauty comes because from volunteers who happen to be mostly older adults, because who else can be here at 4 o'clock? Those volunteers coming in, teaching the enrichment classes, tutoring. And so when it came time to transfer a little bit over to age, we were already ingrained with having older adults in the community coming in and helping. Plus, it's just a nice place because we get so many people. Oh, we'd like to volunteer in the school. Where? Oh, how about Kids Plus? And then the volunteers. Oh, I know someone who can knit. I know someone who can woodwork. Would you like them to? Yes, yes, yes. So that's been wonderful. Also, under that Kids Plus umbrella, we started with an advisory council then too. And I'm proud to say that about 60% of those people 22 years ago now are still on that council. So shifting, talking new ideas, and now they're with me for the age to age program. Under that Kids Plus program, we're not just an after school program, it's the umbrella for many different activities that we've hosted over the years, like father-daughter dance and many different, you name it, we've probably tried it here as an intergenerational activity. Zane also touched on our generator program, which not everyone wants to teach a class or to tutor, after school. But our principal came up with this, he stole it from Virginia. It was called Read and Feed. Older adults would come in and read with students over their lunch hour. So we started that in the Kids Plus community ed room. And it's morphed over the years. We started in 2009. We called it Gener Readers, reading among the generations. And so we have, just depending on size or how many students, 10 to 14 older adults reading with a 2nd grader for 30 minutes and a 3rd grader for 30 minutes. And the beauty of this program is I would go probably 70% of the people who started with us back in 2009 are still here. Some are snowbirds, so they're only here for a few months, and then we have a replacement. But it was that one-on-one relationship for about 8 months out of the school year. And so now when COVID got here, I realized how difficult that was for our adults who used to come in here every week and read, and they'd get here about 40 minutes early, have coffee, visit, read with the kids for that hour, wiped everybody out. So they'd leave real quick, but they started relationships with other adults as well as the kids. And that was hard when COVID got here. So that first year, the kids were still here. So I still had the 3rd graders come in that year because they knew these adults. We read, and then we started writing. We sent letters. And then we made gifts like cookies in a jar and had our generators pull up here beside the school, and we ran out there. And one of the great photos I'll never remember it. One of our ladies, she got lean out of her car and was hugging this boy. And so that was pretty powerful. And then the next year, we still couldn't have adults in the school. And our adults were hurting. I could see that. And so we started an adult book club. And we had a picnic, we met, kind of shared. And as the restrictions lifted, then we started reading, and Minnesota authors, here's the bell, reading with a young adult book. So then we had some high schoolers join us down at the public library in their large room. And then restrictions eased a little more. We started meeting in our shop room with 5th graders and started a book club. And always listening. That's one thing Northland Foundation has taught us to, is always listening and implementing and listening to our older adults and our kids. And they want to keep up that book club next year or this year. Now we can have adults back in the school for our second and third graders, but our adults said, we want to keep going with now our sixth graders. But we still want those second and third graders as well. So expanding that program. And always listening. And then with our funding, with our non-discretionary really funding from the Northland Foundation, we could buy books. We bought a series, Minnesota authors. The adults read the adult books. And then with our sixth graders, we rent the young adult books. We're gonna take a little field trip down to the author's bookstore in Minneapolis this fall, because we're all excited to meet this author. It was just very interesting conversations, but just showing how within those generations, and then just during that time of COVID too, we just really hung on to each other. That was really powerful. In Moose Lake, we tend to pick big projects. And right when we started our Age to Age, many meetings again, community speak outs, everybody putting a little thing, what's our best, what's our worst, what do we want? Big ugly area downtown really bothered people, old people and young people. And the city would put like their culverts and their building supplies, who knows what was all by the river. You didn't know it was a river unless you're on the bridge looking down at the river. Otherwise, you couldn't even tell there was a river there. And so we worked with the city of Moose Lake for over 7 years. This project took us that long. And so that's the staying power of our great Moose Lake community. We stuck with it even during the 2012 flood. And we just wanted a place to put our farmers market, to clean up that area and then have a gathering space. And lo and behold, our pavilion was built. And it's also, okay, there you see our Generations Park, that sign. After that pavilion was built with the butterfly gardens, multi-generational help with that, butterfly gardens, the mayor of our town made that sign and awarded us, donated to us, dedicated to us, Generations Park. He named the area around that pavilion Generations Park. So that was, pretty neat to have the city of Moose Lake then kind of change their system and their approach to think on a multi-generational level. And we went to numerous meetings, city council meetings during this park, during this pavilion project, and fun to have that mayor talk and say, let's, through this other lens. So is it good for our children and our older adults? So that was pretty powerful. This led us to a community garden and orchard. Again, this council of adults, and I think our oldest person is 92 and our youngest is an 8th grader, talking about not having any vegetable vendors at our farmers market anymore. There just aren't people selling so as many as when we first started it. And just our groceries are expensive here in Moose Lake. It takes a lot to ship them here. So what about a community garden? And so we built that in 2020. You can see that photo there, and we hold many classes. We have master gardeners on our panel too. The school utilizes it too. So this was on a we seem to look for blighted areas, and a blighted area near our bus garage, and 21 raised beds in there. And it's pretty cool. This summer we have 4 families that have 3 generations taking care of their box. So fun to see. I didn't put my timer on, so I don't know how. Our school forest trail project, Essentia Health, has a new hospital here in Moose Lake. They also did a great study of our community and community needs. But starting out with our youth and our older people, this was during our older community members during this during COVID, what can we do to be outside, to get people together? And that was utilize our school forest. And so we're making trails. We now have 2 pavilions, trails, campfire spot, and it keeps going because now we have more funding from Essentia Health. And I don't know, I could talk for 3 hours, but I think my time is up. And so I just want to say, send out my, my gratitude for being able to share this and to listen to other inspiring individuals. What's worked for us is to gather, listen, and then work towards the idea or goal. And
great.
I think I'll let you.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you, Carmen. That was great. And just to wrap up quickly, you've heard the benefits of age to age. And we've done the research and the evaluation. Our longtime evaluation partner, Dr. Chandra Mehrotra, who actually wrote a book called Diversity in Aging, which this has a connection with the series from the College of St. Scholastica, really helped us, put the numbers, the qualitative and quantitative data behind these results. And so we think intergenerational community building is a win-win-win, win for children and youth, win for older adults and elders, and a win for community. And my next slide just is not going to transition. So I'm going to just stop share there. And Jan, why don't you just take it home with, and folks will get the strategies.
The last thing we were just going to share is that we always work with our communities to come up with different ways to engage youth and older adults. So we have a resource that we've always shared. It was built by our coordinators. It's attached to our PowerPoint. So we've already shared that with Mimi, and that can be shared with all of you. I just want to thank our panelists today, because without Cheryl and Carmen and Vicki, our money would go nowhere, right? We need workers and doers like this that are in their community making an impact. So thank you to the 3 of them, and thank you for having us today.
All right, well, wonderful. Thanks so much to the great panelists. I know my head sure is spinning with information a little bit. Such a wide array of examples that were shared that are so inspiring. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said, just start small, do what you can. And I think that that's a great takeaway for today in terms of advice. Being aware of the benefits, we can feel it personally, and then on a community level as well. So with this, I do see we do have some questions that have come through in our Q&A. And Amy and I are going to take some time to look through them. And some of them are targeted towards specific panelists. Some of them are more general. So let's just start with the first one. And I think, Amy, you have that in front of you. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you so much, Georgia. So this question is asking, do virtual and telephone intergenerational programs result in the same benefits as in person?
I can start. Other people might have some thoughts about that, but there are benefits to programs that are done remotely, in particular in keeping people, their mental health as well as their mental sharpness up. They don't have the same physical benefits generally because it's more of a sedentary activity. And there's been a little bit of research that's been done on intergenerational programs during COVID. And I think the findings were that it was remarkable how people pivoted, how well they pivoted, but you simply can't replace actually being able to touch someone or be in person. But it was terrific that those took place, and there is a place for remote or technology-based intergenerational work.
One of the things that we found with our Fit Friends was that more importantly than the coaching that people received for their work with their resistance bands was that they wanted someone to talk with. So there was a different kind of relationship built that way with those people. And we learned a lot about each other and a lot about the needs they had, or fears or joys. through that sharing over the telephone conversations.
Great. Any other responses from folks who are doing either virtual and or in person, and what your experience was with that? Okay. All right. Well, the next one is kind of a technical question. We talk about language and that it matters, but this one is a question regarding what is the difference between intergenerational and cross-generational programs? Donna, maybe that's one for you to start again as our national expert, and then anybody else who wants to chime in.
I think you've got a bunch of experts on this Zoom. I appreciate that I get to be fortunate and work with a lot of different programs around the country, but I just so enjoyed listening to everybody's presentations and hearing about the terrific work that's underway. As I mentioned in my presentation, the difference between multi-generational and intergenerational, and I think that the answer to this would be similar. Inter is that intentional connection, the inter between generations. Multi can be multiple in silos, and cross, I think it was trans or whatever, cross is going to be, you're going to skip or you're going to miss. And so we really do advocate for intergenerational.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and take the next question. And Kathy, this might be one where you might be able to lead us, and then if others have something to add. But how are older LGBTQ plus community members adjusting to the newer terms? Does bringing the generations together to learn from each other and share experiences bridge some of the term disconnects?
I'm going to answer the second part of that first and say yes. If we could bring our generations together, we would alleviate a lot of the misunderstanding, tension, horizontal hostility included around words. And so the first part of that question, how are elders adjusting to the introduction of these words? It's a really mixed bag. Some elders can be nimble in their processing of these new words and pick up on them and be using them with ease rather rapidly. Other elders really struggle. It's rewiring networks in your brain because you're taking frequently used names or pronouns and having to change them. And some elders downright refuse because of uncertainty, because of fear, because of misinformation. And I'm going to blame our wacky binary notions around masculinity and femininity for this ingrained fear of something that's different than what we've been encultured in. And in spite of the contrived notions around masculinity and femininity that do a lot of harm to the LGBTQIA2S+ community, many elders, some elders just hold on to that so tightly because that's what we know, coming from especially our rural experiences. So this is a hard one. It is splitting us intergenerationally, but it has the potential to bring us together so powerfully. I guess one thing I will say when I'm talking to people who are struggling with all the terminology is that we have invented no new people. The whippersnappers aren't like creating new kinds of people. They have just created a lexicon. They have just created words that we can use to respectfully describe ourselves and others and how we should be able to authentically express. And sometimes that takes a little bit of the fear out of it to say, yeah, no new people, just new words. And we should be thankful to those youngsters for giving us new words to regard one another considerately and respectfully. And if you ask me, most of us are non-binary. So there.
Right. Anyone else have anything to add to that question? All right, Georgia, next one.
Yeah, I want to tack on a comment to Kathy, just noting a recent conversation with a friend of mine about this, and just allowing for diversity within everyone around what they feel is a comfortable term or terminology. So always growing in our awareness, right? So it's not a hard and fast rule all the time, and just an attention to knowing how important language and labels and titles and things like that are. So I want to just underscore that there's such diversity, and it's a really important dialogue for folks to be having. So thank you, Kathy, for that. Next question is for Zane. Could you speak a little bit more about the AmeriCorps Senior Demonstration Grant and what your intentions and hopes and things are with that? Very exciting.
Sure. Well, I'll just give a little history. So the Northland Foundation, our Kids Plus program is an operating program. And what that means is it's grant funded. So over the years, the Northland Foundation has really been successful with all the great community partnerships that we have to bring, our focus is resources from outside of the region into the region. And so we've been able to provide funding for age to age at varying levels since 2008. And it's been a really core piece of another larger effort we have around rural aging and in our integrated rural community aging program. Well, like many grant funded initiatives, they come to an end, and we're looking at a current grant end at the end of this year. So thanks to our friends at the Area Agency on Aging, Georgia, your executive director, Christy Kane, shared this opportunity for AmeriCorps funding. And we looked at it and went, wow, okay, should we do it? And, it gave it a shot, worked with an expert in AmeriCorps grant writing, and we're able to pull this together really quickly over the holidays, never happened faces. And we received one of the largest awards in the country, $500,000 over 2 years. And what that means is, for our age-to-age communities that wanted to come forward, and we had 12 and work with us on this, we had 12, so we were super excited. They're going to just be able to keep doing what they're doing. They're going to be able to have some funding to keep older adults engaged with youth, but really a specific focus on learning loss and social emotional development.
Oh, I think we lost Zane here.
With COVID recovery in our, sorry.
You glitched, but you're okay.
Okay, going out in the region, never fails, internet issues. So we will be doing a news release about this, so watch for that. And also had an article in our Northland website, which I'll put in chat, so you can read a little more about it.
Could I ask a follow-up question to Zane on that? Will communities that haven't been engaged with the Age to Age program or the Northland Foundation in the past have an opportunity to benefit or become engaged with this program?
Well, again, age to age is really community specific. So I will just say that if you're out in the region, and I know you have a great attendance from all over, that our age to age communities are across the region, and that we can help be a conduit, Jan and I, or Taylor on our team. So just feel free to email us, and we can help connect you to opportunities in those communities.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that award. That's really impressive. I'm going to shift to the next question here, and that's pretty kind of a general broad question regarding programming. And it asks if anyone has done programs focused on or to integrate elders with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia or mild cognitive impairment. Can anybody speak to that? I see Donna shaking your head, yes.
I can start just from some models that we're aware of around the country, and there really are several. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that people, as I said, at all abilities have something to offer. So I always remember an intergenerational shared site where they would take the babies in to see the residents with dementia, and the residents would hold the babies and rock them. and they would perk up, they would come alive for that time when the babies were there. So the babies were serving and the older adults were serving. So they were active participants. But there's some wonderful programs, including opening mind through the arts, time slips, that are art and music programs that involve intergenerational programming and dementia. There also are shared sites. As I mentioned, there's also St. Anne's in Milwaukee and One Generation in LA, where they intentionally have units and programs for people with dementia, and intergenerational programming that's underway. There was also the Intergenerational School in Cleveland, where they had volunteers with dementia who were able to work with the children. And so again, there's different ways and different of engaging people.
I can just share another opportunity that exists in Duluth and actually across the region. The Victory Chorus is a chorus comprised of people living with dementia singing alongside volunteer singers. And that's in Duluth, but there are these types of choruses across Minnesota. And many of the volunteer singers are younger. I know the Victory Chorus had a couple of college students and one high school student in its first year. So while it's not specifically calling out this is an intergenerational program, the chorus composition ends up to be bringing several generations together. And that's definitely one of the benefits. And across the Arrowhead region, I'm actually not sure of a chorus, but I know that the Victory Chorus has opportunities for engagement remotely as well. So, and I can provide more information on that in a follow-up email.
Thank you, Mimi.
Great. Thanks. I'll do a quick shout out too for Dementia Friends sessions have been done throughout our region and really throughout the state and country. And they can be adapted to Girl Scout, Boy Scout, youth groups, different types of things like that, which is a 1-hour information session about dementia, focusing on communication. And so really, normalizing and destigmatizing memory loss for children and younger adults is really important. So that's a wonderful question. Next question really can go to anyone. For specific intergenerational programs, do you provide training for participants, and if yes, what does it look like?
Well, I would love to hear from, I was just thinking Cheryl, Vicki, Carmen, but so the Northland Foundation with our Age to Age program, we do a lot of training and peer learning with our coordinators, but we were also pre-COVID holding in-person summits and focusing on different intergenerational leadership topics with our college interns and our Age to Age fellows. We do training. And Cheryl, I was thinking about the training that you led around just understanding the aging process and how helpful that was, especially for the younger people involved in that program. But those are just some examples, but training is always so important.
Any other feedback or thoughts?
Yes, the only thing I would add is, I think Zane said it quite well, but is the toolkits that I mentioned have chapters or lessons in those that you can pull out that have to do with preparing people to participate, because it is really important that that people are prepared. We can't just throw generations together in a blender and hit blend. It takes that intentionality and that preparation and that training are just critical to the success.
And just thinking back to, the community organizing model, and we do on our website have more information on the model. And so you can go there for resources, but really being intentional about helping build those relationships and also understanding generations, and lots of time spent doing those kind of things. But I'd kind of defer to Vicki and Cheryl and Carmen if they have anything to add here.
We do some training. This is Cheryl. We do some training to prepare young people working with older adults, and we do some training with the older adults in how to receive these young people into their homes and their yards and their space. But a lot of it is showing the generations the similarities, the things that we all have as concerns or fears, or things that make us happy and things that are fun, that there are so many commonalities that those are things that we can always talk about. So not focusing on differences only, but talking a lot about the things that are similar.
Thank you. I think we have time for another question here, and I'm just going to go ahead. How would you encourage an older adult who has been in long-term isolation to come out and participate in intergenerational activities outside of their own grandchildren? It's a great question.
I don't know if anyone else has something to add, but I will put in that a personal conversation, a phone conversation, but whenever you can make contact in person and be inviting and really explain what it is that you're inviting a person to do and how all the little pieces of that event or activity come together so that there aren't surprises when they arrive or when they're picked up or when they're transported. So just that really personal touch and personal invitation.
Donna, were you gonna share?
I was just going to say, I think the greatest successes that we've seen have been peer-to-peer, where you're engaging, where an older adult is actually involved in asking peers to join them, and that it's a service, that they're helping another generation, because we know that during COVID, the two generations that were hit the hardest by the social isolation and loneliness were our younger people and our older people. And so to call on older people to be of service to help young people as they're transitioning can be a meaningful way of engaging people as well.
All right, well, I think we are getting close to time here, so there are a couple more questions, but we will encourage you to reach out to any of our panelists or to any of us. If your questions didn't get asked, this is a really deep and rich discussion, and so we could go on for a long time, but I'm sure we all have to get on with our days. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Amy.
Great, thanks, Georgia, and thank you again, everyone, for participating, and especially to those who presented. And so this just really emulated and instilled a lot of emotion in me in terms of thinking about the circle of life, really. And in Anishinaabe culture, we think about the four hills of life and the importance of the intersection of the human condition, and it just really made me think about the traditional way in which we as Indigenous communities, lived and thrived, learning from our elders and taking care of our babies and how we think about the life cycle. So that, really invites me to think about the importance of understanding diversity and how we lean into just expanding our cultural fluency. There's so much to be learned. I loved in the video, one of the t-shirts, it's cool to be old. I know things. It's cool to be young. I know things. I mean, to really be, what can your call to action be? How can you position yourself and pivot out to really create opportunities for intergenerational relation building and expanding your sphere of influence and really bringing in that understanding of diversity in all its forms, whether that, be through identity or family status, really the importance of learning. So I invite you and encourage you to do those things. As you know, you showed up here today, and that's a huge first step, the interest and love of learning in action. And so how do you pivot out now and really expand and make that imprint of cultural fluency in your own sphere of influence? And George is going to share some resources and as we move towards the end of our session here. But I just again want to thank everyone for this very very thought-provoking session.
Yes. Wonderful. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, we have a lot of great resources. I think some have been plugged into the chat throughout, but just wanting to point out the Generations United resources can be found at gu.org. Couple great ones are Making the Case for Intergenerational Programs and the Intergenerational Programs Benefit Everyone fact sheet. I think it just provides a wonderful context. We've also got some information about Northland Foundation's Age to Age program. There's also a fabulous report that came out probably a couple months ago. It's the 2022 Minnesota LGBTQ Aging Needs Assessment Report, really kind of highlighting what community organizations and really anyone can do to become more responsive, inclusive, welcoming for LGBTQ communities. And I guess the last one I would like to share is the National Resource Center on LGBTQ plus aging. That will be coming out as well, along with the slide presentations. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mimi to just wrap it up for us.
Thank you so much to everyone in attendance. We're grateful that you invested your time with us today. We hope you have taken away some important information that you can use as you move forward. To the presenters and the ASL interpreters, we are so incredibly grateful for the information that you provided today. I think this was very valuable. I'm very excited about it. And then I just hope that everybody will take the survey. The survey will pop up as you close out of the event. It will also be included in a follow-up email. That helps us understand how we can do a better job in future events, as well as what you like, so we can keep doing that. And we hope that on November 17th, you will join us for our next Northland Diversity in Aging Series event, which is going to focus on supporting older adults and caregivers in the workforce. That's shaping up to be another wonderful event. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.